bet you did all the
Welcome
introductions
back.
already.
Okay, picking up where we left off. We were by Yishlach last time we talked, now we're Shemos. Okay, I'm actually changed the style for this week a little bit. In the past couple of weeks, we did basically a theme. We picked the Gemara, and then we explicated the Gemara completely and did an entire discussion on one Gemara, developing a theme. This week I do something a little bit different. Since the Gemara that we're picking in Sota really spans several dapim and it relates on many issues related to the beginning of Parsha Shemos, instead of doing one big theme, we're going to point out some highlights, some nice ideas that stem from several Gemara instead of just one Gemara related to the Parsha. And the Gemara that we're going to be looking at, if you look at your source sheets, can I take one of those? Thank you. Which is a Gemara in Sota, and we'll see how the Gemara begins discussing the topic of the beginning of Shemos, the first parak and a little bit of the second parak is what we're going to do. The Gemara on the beginning of the second page, which is in Sota, on Daf Yud Aleph, Amud Aleph, and goes all the way through Yud Beis, is a very long Gemara. And this Gemara, no doubt, will be very familiar to us, primarily because Rashi quotes a lot of this Gemara on his commentary on the Chumash. So all the Rashis that we learned as children, the Divrei Chazal we're familiar with, a lot of them come from this Gemara. So these are ideas that we're familiar with, and we're just going to go through them and point out some highlights and some things that I found meaningful along the way as we go through the Gemaras. The Psukim on the front page, we're not necessarily going to go through the Psukim, but it's important to be able to reference the Psukim because the Gemara itself assumes that you are familiar with the Psukim. So we may have to look back and forth just to see what the Gemara is referring to. Okay? So let's begin. And the reason why the reason why the Gemara here is discussing Shemos, or the beginning of Shemos, is based on the Mishnah on Daf Tesam and Beis. The first half of the Mishnah, the part that I don't have, which is represented by the three dots that means the first half of the Mishnah, talks about reward and punishment, Mida Keneged Mida. The Mishnah talks about the fact that a Kadosh Baruch Hu rewards, or rather punishes those who don't do what they're supposed to be doing, Mida Keneged Mida. And then the Mishnah continues and it says not only does a Kadosh Baruch Hu punish Mida Keneged Mida, but a Kadosh Baruch Hu also rewards Mida Keneged Mida. And that's where our Mishnah picks up with this week's Parsha. So the Mishnah says, V'chein l'inyan tova. Not only does the Kadosh Baruch Hu mete out punishments, Mida Keneged Mida, but v'chein l'inyan tova. So too when it comes to someone who does good. Miriam himtina l'Moshe shah achas. Miriam waited for Moshe, for her brother Moshe, for 1 hour. Shnei amar v'tiyat seva achoso merachok, that his sister stood by from a distance. L'fichach nisakvu la Yisrael zayin yama binbar. And therefore, when Miriam was smitten with Tsaras, the nation waited for her for a full week. Shnei amar, as it says in the pasuk, va'am lo nasa ad ha'asaf Miriam, and the people did not travel until Miriam was gathered back to them, until she was brought back to them. And the Mishnah continues that that we're not going to read it inside, but as a result of the fact that Yosef helped to bury his father Yaakov, and he was the gadol of the brothers, he was the gadol who was the leader, and therefore one might have thought it was beneath his dignity to bury his father. As a result of that fact, the leader of the Jewish people, Moshe Rabbeinu, himself buries him, meaning as a reward. And because Moshe, who was the God, the leader of the Jewish people, quote unquote, lowered himself to bury Yosef, to deal with the bones of Yosef, who buries Moshe Rabbeinu? None other than Hashem himself. So the Gemara shows us not only is there this idea of that a Kadosh Baruch Hu rewards us Mida Keneged Mida, but in some sense, if you do something good, Hashem pays you back even more than you gave. And we're going to see that's what the Gemara is going to explain right now. So the Gemara, we're just going to go to the Gemara that discusses this Mishnah, this line of the Mishnah. Other Gemaras will not be related to this point, but this is the launching point. So the Gemara tells us, this is the Mishnah on Daf Tesam Beis. The Gemara tells us on Yud Aleph and Amud Aleph a little bit later on in the Masechta, V'chein l'inyan tova Miriam. So the question is, the Gemara asks, is it really comparable? I mean, how long did Miriam wait for her brother Moshe? She waited, according to the Mishnah, for an hour. And how long did the Jewish people wait for her when she was Mitzorah? A week. So the Gemara says, Midami, is it really comparable? 1 hour, okay, you do something for a favor for a person for an hour, so that's nice, you give an hour of your time, but to put the entire nation on hold for an entire week, that's real tircha de sibura. It doesn't seem to be Mida Keneged Mida, and we're told it's Mida Keneged Mida. They're supposed to be co-equals. So the Gemara asks, Midami, are they really comparable? Hasam chadashaysa hachashiva yami. In her case, she waited for 1 hour. That was very nice of her, but it's only 1 hour when all is said and done. But hacha shiva yomi, they waited for her for a full week. So Amar Abai, Ema l'inyan hatova eno kain. So says Abai, let us say Linatova Enokin, that unlike Mida Keneged Mida when it comes to Ra, where Hashem pays you equally, so maybe when it comes to Mida Tova, Hashem pays you more. It's not Keneged Mida, it's more than what you did. So that's what Abai suggests. So Rava says, but you're not being true to the words of the Mishnah. Amar le Rava ha v'chein le'inyan hatova katani. The Mishnah says, and similarly by people who act good and do well. Meaning the Mishnah says there's a corollary. And if a Kadosh Baruch Hu pays you equally when you do bad, then the Mishnah seems to imply he pays you equally when you do good. Like, what does the Mishnah say? At the beginning of the Mishnah, the first word that we looked at is v'chein, and similarly. Meaning the reward one gets for doing a good deed should be equal to what they do. It shouldn't be more, otherwise the Mishnah wouldn't have used the word v'chein. V'chein always implies that they're co-equals. Ela Amar Rava, so Rava says, rather, this is what it means. Hachi Ketani. V'chein l'inyan hatova deba'osa mida. Just like a Kadosh Baruch Hu punishes someone in the same way that they sinned, so too HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem rewards people in the same manner in which they did good. So what does v'chein mean? Similarly, in a similar vein of what the act that they did, Hashem acts in kind. So
like the waiting.
Exactly. So it was the matter of waiting that Hashem repays. So that's the similarity. Ola midatova maruba midas paranas. But, thank God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even though in the same manner, in the act of waiting, Hashem repays us the same, midatova maruba midas paranas. HaKadosh Baruch Hu meets it out in a much greater measure. Which, of course, is something that we can all hopefully take solace in. That our good deeds are seen in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as more valuable than our Averos. So even though we talk about the fact that there are these scales in Yemei Hadin, that everything is weighed, and there are mitzvos and there are Ma'asim Rayim, right, implying that there's a scale that has to be balanced. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, according to at least the way the Gemara understands our Mishnah, does look more favorably upon the Midos Tovos and the Midos Raos. Okay? Which is, I guess, something we can all relate to as parents, as teachers, something that we like to focus on as well. That a measure of good oftentimes outweighs a measure of bad. Okay, not much more to say in that, unless you want to. But going on to the Gemara continues, and it has a very nice idea. Hashem stood with Miriam and she waited for Moshe Rabbeinu. So says the Gemara, that his sister stood by him from a distance. Amar Rav Yitzchak, says Rav Yitzchak, pasuk zeh kulo al shem shchina ne'emar. This entire pasuk, although it's referring to Miriam waiting for Moshe, in reality, one could say that the Hashem is really the protagonist in the Pesukim. And the Pesukim are really referring to the Shechina itself. Vatitatsev, that she stood. Dichsev vayavo Hashem yitatsev. We see by Hashem also that Hashem stands. Achoso, his sister. Dichsev amor lechachma achosiyas. Say to Chachma, say to wisdom that I am her sister. That's a Kadosh Baruch Hu speaking. Meirachok, from a distance. We see by Hashem, Merachok Hashem Nereli, Hashem appeared to me from a distance. L'da'as, to know what became of Moshe, Ke'el Deos Hashem, that a Kadosh Baruch Hu was referred to as a Ke'el Deos. Ma Yasela, what will happen to Moshe Rabbeinu? The Gemara doesn't quote the whole pasuk, but that's what the pasuk continues and says. She wanted to know what would happen to him. Dichsev Ma Hashem Elokech Shel Mincha. What does Hashem ask of you? The word Ma is used with regards to a Kadosh Baruch Hu himself. Yaseh, what will become of Moshe Rabbeinu? So the pasuk says, "Dichsiv ki lo yaseh Hashem Elokim davar." That Hashem will not act in this manner. And lo, about him, Dichsiv vayikra lo Hashem Shalom. So all of the words in the pasuk, starting from the word Vatitatsev achoso, starting from the pasuk that describes that his sister stood from a distance, all are a reference to a Kadosh Baruch Hu himself. Which is a very beautiful idea that when Miriam waited and protected Moshe Rabbeinu, it wasn't just Miriam looking after Moshe Rabbeinu, but it was Hashem himself. And by the way, this pasuk is in Perik Beis, pasuk Dalet. Vatitatsev, achoso, vatitatsav, achoso, mirachok, l'deya ma yaselo. And of course, something which has to strike you from this pasuk is that the pasuk indicates that where did she stand? Vatitatsev, mirachok, from a distance. Which is something very nice. That had the pasuk just said that Miriam stood up over Moshe Rabbeinu from close range, and that's symbolic of Kadosh Baruch Hu looking over us, it would be meaningful. But the fact that we're told that Miriam stood from a distance, so perhaps the Chazal are pointing out from us, is that even though Miriam's watching over Moshe Rabbeinu was not apparent, she was behind the bulrushes and she was from a distance. We believe that even when a Kadosh Baruch Hu is not seen, he's looking after us also from beneath the bulrushes, from behind the bulrushes, from a distance as well. And although one could have, I guess in theory, said this is a Maisa Genai at some point, that how can Miriam watch her brother from a distance? So the truth of the matter is that in this situation, that was the only way Miriam could look out for Moshe. There was no other way for her to look out for Moshe. Similarly, Chazal clearly had this in mind also, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu also, sometimes he can't operate from close range. Sometimes the only shmirah he can do is from a distance, which is also very meaningful.
Is this Gemara follows
These are all, until we get to the point when I have 3 dots and it shows you that I skipped some Gemara. This is all a straight read of the Gemara.
Straight
read of the Gemara.
from Sota.
Yeah, I put English.
It's so interesting that the Gemara seems to go out of its way to show that God was so involved in this episode. Like
Yes.
that, because it's like someone who brought up Shot. It's so
Right.
not there. And it seems that Chazal's
They want to read it back into every single word in the pasuk.
yeah, but I think particularly with all of Moshe's life, because,
Yes.
this is
Right,
a lot
exactly.
invested here.
There's a lot invested here. And we're going to see a lot more of this as we go further, how much everything they want to tie back into Pshat and the Psukim. Okay, so a new king arose. The word new is put in italics because we know there's a machlokas. This is perhaps the most famous machlokas, Rav and Shmuel. Second to the one we're going to see a little bit later on. So, Vayakam melech hadash, right, so this is the very beginning of the first source that I quote, Shemos Perek Aleph Pasuk Ches, Vayakam melech hadash, Asher al Mitzrayim, Asher lo yada es Yosef. After we're told the lineage of the Jewish people, we're told a new king arises. So who is this new king? So Rav Shmuel, it's machlokes, Rav and Shmuel. Chad Amar, one opinion, let's assume it's Rav, because he's mentioned first, says Mamish, Chadash Mamash. He was a brand new king. V'chad Amar, Shneschad Shu Gzei Rosav. One opinion says that he was the same old Paro, but he changed his mind, his decrees had changed. So the Gemara says, that's quoted in Rashi, Man de Amar Chadash Mamish, the one who says that it was literally a new king, Dichsiv Chadash. First of all, he has the word Chadash going for him. Chadash. If you want to be literal, the word new implies new. Uman da Amar Neschad Shu Gzei Rosav, the one whose opinion it is that his decrees were new, also has a contextual support. The lokativ vayamas vayimloch. Nowhere in the Torah does it say that the old Paro died and a new Paro takes over. So therefore, as a result of the fact that we're not told that Paro died, we assume that Paro didn't die. And asher lo yada as Yosef. What does it mean that he didn't know Yosef? Meaning, how is it possible that Yosef wasn't known? He was perhaps the most famous figure in all Mitzrayim, second to Paro himself. He made himself not to know Yosef. So how do you assume that even if it was the same Paro or a new Paro, he didn't know Yosef? Because he made it appear as if he didn't know Yosef. He chose to forget Yosef. I saw a very nice idea, which is, this is going to be the only non-drush idea. This is going to be the one halachic idea that we'll share today. And I saw a quote in the name of the Ben Yehoyada. The Ben Yehoyada is for Yosef Chaim Baghdad. We quoted him before because he has 2 Sfarim, Ben Yehoyada, Ben Yehoyada. He viewed himself as a reincarnation of Ben Yehoyada, Ben Yehoyada, and therefore he gave his Sfarim that name. And he is also the Ben Ishchai, and he has a commentary on most of the Agados from Shas. And he said there's actually halachic significance to the fact that Chadash here doesn't necessarily mean new, but it might be like new. So what's the halachic significance? So he points out that there's a discussion. We know that several people are exempt from going to war, and they may return home in cases of battle. So one of them is someone who is betrothed to a woman and doesn't yet marry her. Right? We don't not betrothal like the way we use it, but the way the Torah used it, that he was engaged to her. Someone who plants a vineyard and doesn't yet get a chance to drink from its wine or eat from its grapes. And the third one is someone who builds a bayis chadash, a new house. So the question the Mishnah raises, the opinion of the Mishnah is, let's say someone doesn't build a new house. Let's say they do an addition. Or they do a complete remake of their house. They knock down their own house. They had a house, and they build a new house. But it's not their first house. So is a bayis chadash taken literally to mean a brand new house that you've never owned before, or does it mean even a new version of the old house? So the Mishnah, this is based on a Mishnah in Sota, on Daf Mem Gimel Amud Aleph. So Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion, he says, Af habona bayis al mechono, even someone who builds a house on its previous foundations, lo hayachozer, he's not allowed to go back. Meaning it's only someone who literally build a new house. And the Gemara then goes and gives other examples, like someone who puts windows in their house, right? Major construction in your house. And it addresses this point. So the Rambam does not paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. He paskins like the Tanakh, like the Chachamim. It says when it says you build a new house, it means even someone who knocked down his house and rebuilt his house. Unlike Rabbi Yehuda, who says you have to literally build a brand new house. It says of Yosef Chaim Baghdad. Where do we see this machlokas? V'yakam melech chadash. Does chadash mean a brand new king, or does a new king mean a new reincarnation of the old version? So the Rambam clearly here paskins like not Rav, but like Shmuel, who is the same old Paro, but with new intentions. It says the Ben Ayahu Ben Yohayada. How does the Rambam know that Rabbi Yehuda is right? The Chachamim are right. The new doesn't even mean brand new. New even means a new version of the old house. So he says, because when it comes to machloksim between Rav and Shmuel, when it comes to the halachos of dinim, we paskin like Shmuel. And therefore the Rambam used this machlokes of Rav and Shmuel here to figure out what chadash means. And once he knows that chadash even includes something which existed, but it's in a new version, he therefore concludes that we don't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, we paskin like Chacham. That was very interesting.
Except this is not a halachic discussion.
This is not a halachic discussion. So he says it's al pidrush, right? Whether or not, but again, the Rambam doesn't paskin like it, so we don't have to worry. But Mishal Melech and others ask, how does the Rambam know this? And they leave it as a question, because the Gemara itself entertains Rabbi Yehuda's position, and the Gemara itself asks questions of Rabbi Yehuda's position, seemingly taking the side of Rabbi Yehuda, which leads the Mishal Melech to ask, so how do we know that we don't pass Rabbi Yehuda? So we don't know the answer, but he suggests, perhaps, al pidrush, this is how the Rambam knew. Take it or leave it. I thought it was a nice idea. Okay, but that's the only halachic inference learning from the Gemara. The rest will all be drush. So let's continue. Anything else on that Gemara? Do you want to say? Okay.
Well, that's why it's a really nice. It's a nice reason, because the first opinion clearly is way more logical.
Much more logical.
New, real. Like you like pshat. It's totally pshat. It's totally goes with the word better. So like, why would the Rambam side with,
because it doesn't
on
say
that?
vayimat. That's what you usually say.
I know, but really, I mean, the Torah is not, it's not so concerned with discussing with us what happened from Egypt's side.
Right.
Like as a history book.
That's
It's
right.
more concerned with what's
But I think
relevant to us.
the Gemara's, the last line of the Gemara there is also, because I think the Gemara is assuming is, even if you're going to tell me that it was a new Melech, it's impossible not to know Yosef. Once we're assuming that
Right.
whoever it is that was in charge
Right.
chose not to remember Yosef, does it matter if it was a new Paro or an old Paro? I mean, whoever it was going to be, whether it was the same old Paro or a brand new Paro, they had to choose not to remember Yosef. Once you're making that decision, then it really is no difference if it's new or old, because...
Right.
Right, that's why I always wondered that there was so much, just like, who really cared?
Right.
There was this machlok, and I was like,
Right,
makes
because
no difference
it
really.
is so
The outcome's
highly
the same.
illogical, whether it's new or not new,
Same.
to,
Well, I'll
what
tell
are
you
we
what-
talking about? 20 years in history just happened, and he saved the world from utter starvation
Right.
with his plan. So how could somebody not just know what happened 20 years before? Like, think about us. I mean, is there anyone who doesn't know?
Oh, I think, I have no problems understanding this
Oh,
one.
yeah?
I mean, like, what?
Right, well, they didn't have the media the way they do now back then, but yeah, you see how things can be switched really quickly.
Yeah,
Right.
and I guess anti-Semitism.
I never would have
it's
believed the anti-Semitism
Yeah,
today would be.
Yeah, and listen,
I mean,
it's
even
it
even
goes way
5
back.
years ago.
Yeah.
So things
Right.
can change quickly.
Yeah.
But if it's the same Paro, it brings into discussion the fact that he had no Akar Satov for what Yosef had
Yeah.
done for him personally.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference if it was a new Paro versus an old Paro. Because even if you do something good for someone personally, even that could be forgotten.
Yeah, we know that from Yaakov.
I think
Others
also-
here.
Yeah.
About the
That's
shuk.
right, that's right. That's them shook him. That's right. Very good. Okay,
That's my
um,
favorite too.
moving right along. So the Gemara continues. Again, this is all, we haven't skipped anything yet. We're going to skip a little bit. Paro speaks first in his punishment. Vayomer el amo hine am b'nei Yisrael. So Paro says to his people, where's the pasuk I'm looking for here? Vayomer el amo hine b'nei Yisrael rav atzu mimenu. This is Aleph pasuk tes. Who's speaking? Paro is speaking. Who hitchil be'etz tchila? He's the first one who mentions, who comes up with this idea that the Jewish people are all trouble and therefore they have to be taken care of. Lafichach laka tchila. Therefore, Paro is the first one struck. Who hitchil be'etz tchila? Dichsev vayomer el amo. Where do you see that he's the first one to give advice, to suggest that the Jewish people there's a problem that has to be dealt with? Because it says vayomer el amo, he said to his people. And where do we see that he's the first one struck? Lafichach laka tchila. Therefore, he's the first one struck, as it says, that the frogs will inhabit you and your nation, and all your servants. And the Torah goes out this way. It says when it comes to the frogs, you're going to be the first one to be struck. So again, divine retribution, midah k'neged midah, relates back to our Mishnah that Paro, Hashem doesn't forget that Paro is the first one to speak. Okay, so.
Actually, that works out nicely with, if it's a Paro that forgot Yosef purposely as opposed to a new Paro.
Right, although I would think he'd be deserving
How
of
was
being
Paro
punished.
the first one struck?
Because the Torah mentions that the frogs afflicted his household, him personally first, before everyone else. right? Paro, one morning Paro woke up in his bed.
Yeah.
So we don't say about everyone else. We say only about Paro. Okay. So then Paro suggests, and this is now Perik Aleph Pasuk Yud. He says, "Havon is chachmalo pen yirbe." So let's go act wisely with them, lest they multiply, etc., etc. They're going to call the key to Keren Mechama. They're going to call war against us. And they'll force us out of the land. So the Gemara says, "Havon is chachmalo." Doesn't say lahem. It says lo. Let us deal wisely with it. So lahem mibayale, says the Gemara. Why did Paro say let us deal wisely with it? It should have said let us deal wisely with them. Amar Rav Chama b'Rabbi Chanina, says Rav Chama b'Rabbi Chanina, ba'ov v'nechachem l'Moshiach shal Yisrael. What he was referring to is we have to deal wisely with the Redeemer of the Jewish people. If we can get at whoever it is that's going to be the Moshiach, he believed that there was a Moshiach, as we can see from his astrologers. We have to deal wisely with the Redeemer, because if you can get to the Moshiach, then the Jewish people themselves will not be able to leave Mitzrayim. But Memi Donam, what should we do? How should we act? What should we do to punish the Moshiach shal Yisrael? So Nidona Be'ish, let us punish him with fire. Let's burn all babies or potential saviors by fire. Ksiv ki hinei Hashem be'ish yavo. Uksiv ki be'ish Hashem nishpa. That's not going to work, because we know already that a Kadosh Baruch Hu is himself the essence of fire. Ki hinei Hashem be'ish yavo. Hashem will come in fire. Ki be'ish Hashem nishpa. Because Hashem will judge through fire. Meaning we can't use fire against Jewish people, because the Kadosh Baruch Hu will bring the fire tenfold on us. And then it says, "Becharev." Let's kill all babies with the sword. Uvacharvo et kol basar. So Kadosh Baruch Hu, we're told, slaughters with the sword. Ella. So that's not an option. Ella ba'ov niduna b'mayim. So let's judge them with water. Shekvar nishba haKadosh Baruch Hu she'enu mevi ma'bul la'olam. And they thought that was the best option. Why water? Because the Kadosh Baruch Hu had already promised in the days of Noach that he would no longer bring a flood to the world. Shneimar, it says, Ki mei Noach zosli. These waters of Noach are the last flood I'll ever bring. What was the mistake they made, though? That was a good calculation on their part, right? And the Kadosh Baruch Hu, again, we're all talking about Midah Keneged Midah here, right? Hashem can bring the fire back against them. Hashem can bring the sword back against them. Hashem can't bring the water back against them, they figured, because Hashem already promised that he would not bring a flood. V'hein ein yodin, third line, they didn't know, or they didn't think, Sha'al kol ha'olam kulo ein mevi. Hashem only promised they wouldn't bring a flood on the entire world. Aval uma achas hu mevi. But he never said he wouldn't bring a flood against one nation. Inami, Gemara suggests a second possible reason, a second possible flaw in their logic. Hu'enu mivi aval hein ba'in b'noflu mitocho. It's not that Hashem destroyed them with the water, as we see by Kriyas Yamsuf, but they threw themselves into the water. V'chein hu omer u'mitzriyim nasim lekroso, and the Mitzrayim went out to greet the water. Okay. So they thought they were outsmarting a Kadosh Baruch Hu, but Kadosh Baruch Hu showed them, and there's two nice ideas from this Gemara. The first idea is, of course, that a Kadosh Baruch Hu's, don't ever question a Kadosh Baruch Hu's cheshbonos. And the second thing was, is that at the end of the day, as much as they prepared not to be punished through water, they inflicted it upon themselves. They brought it upon themselves. Meaning it was only through their actions that the water was able to get them. It's not just enough that they were able to try to outsmart a Kadosh Baruch Hu, but they brought it upon themselves through their own haughtiness. As the Gemara continues, that it's like that someone brings a pot with which to cook, and they get cooked in their own pot, which is a very colorful metaphor. But okay, so that goes to show you, if you ever try to outwit a Kadosh Baruch Hu, right?
Is it possible that lo is a reference to God and not so much to Moshe?
Interesting. Could be. I didn't see anything like that, but that's possible. But we see a lot of these references in the singular. Some say that we also have this idea that they didn't even refer to him as a people. It was it was a thing. It was a sheretz. It was something it was a disease that had to be dealt with. It's possible. I didn't see anything like that. Everything's said by someone. Okay, the three wise men. I probably shouldn't say that. But I do, because I guess that makes sense. Amar Rav Chia bar Ava, Amar Rav Simai. Shlosha hayu ba'osa eitza. There were three people in Paro's inner circle, in his council of advisors. Bilam, Eov, and Yitzro. Bilam, Shi'atz, Neharag. Very well-known idea also. Bilam, who gave advice to kill the Jewish people, he himself was killed, right, in Bamidbar. Eov, Sheshasak. Eov, who remained quiet. Nidon b'Yisurim. We know all the Sefer Eov discusses the tragedy that befalls Eov. He's made to suffer. Yisro, Shabarach, but Yisro, who runs away, Zachu mibnei banav sheyeshu lishkas hagazis. His descendants would sit in the Sanhedrin, lishkas hagazis, in the Sanhedrin itself. Very famous Chazal, right?
We never hear about Moshe's children.
Well, the Gemara then goes and it brings proofs from Sugim. That's the part I cut out.
Where does that even come from?
What's that?
Where does it even come from? Like Bilam and Eov and...
Where does the Medrash come from? From Pshat and Psukim at all? I'm not sure where the Chazal get it from.
Mhm.
I'm not sure. Chazal clearly understood they all lived at the same time, and they understood that.
Three non-Jews we know.
Right.
Right, and they happen to be, they lived at the same time in the proximity to Mitzrayim. I'm sure there's more to say about that. Well, that's a good question. There's to be said about this. But what's interesting is Eov, right? I mean, what choice did Eov have? Paro asks you, so he wasn't Yisro, he didn't run away. If anything, what he did was much more noble than Yisro. He at least stayed to suffer the consequences. He didn't run away from the king. He stayed, and he didn't indict them like Bilam. So he remained quiet. So why is Eov punished so strongly? And one could even suggest that his punishment is even worse than Yisro. It seems. I mean, again, we're not getting into this discussion now. What's worse, Yisurim, Shalhava, or Misa itself? But it's difficult, right?
Maybe it's a comment on staying quiet, that being quiet.
It's a comment on being quiet,
that
right?
whole-
Right. Although we always like to praise someone shtika, right? Shtika is always very someone we praise, someone who's
Except that he
quiet.
should have come to their...
Right. So I don't think this means he was quiet. It means that he was passive and allowed it to happen. But I think
And I didn't even understand it, that it meant right at this time they all did this. Because it's like,
I feel like
look,
the three of them were
Bilam
in a ring.
Sheya'atz, I thought it meant later on he gives Eitzah to Balak about how to get at the Jewish people.
yeah.
And Eov takes his own Yisurim when, like the book of Eov is about everything that happens to Eov and his family, right?
Right.
Like all the terrible things. And he won't shout, I remember just learning it briefly with Mazef. He won't
takes-
shout back at
right.
Hashem. He keeps it quiet, and his friends come and they tell him what
Right.
they think and how to deal
He
with
takes
it.
it and deals
He
with it.
takes it. And Yitro later, when Moshe says to him, "Come and stay with us," and he won't stay with the Bnei Israel, he goes back to Midian.
Right.
I thought it meant later on.
I think Pshat in the Gemara at least.
Is
the
right
Gemara
now.
is that it's right
Okay,
now. That
okay,
they were
that's
all
interesting.
asked their advice
Okay.
what to do with him.
Right, well, I
I can
can also.
imagine them in a conference room.
Right, it uses the characteristics we know of each person. We know that
Yeah.
Eov is shtika, which is usually considered a good thing, and in
Right.
here, maybe it's considered not.
Okay.
And we know that, we know the Yitro is a bulger. So, like,
you're saying in terms
That's
of-
really a famous
and
Gemara.
Bilam
Also,
is the
yeah.
cursor.
It's,
No,
um,
I didn't know this either.
It's quoted
I
often.
had
Yeah.
heard about the three of them being there.
You're being
I had
kind.
heard it.
He's only famous if you know them. They're not, if you don't know them, they're not famous.
Okay.
We all know that.
I heard about the three of them, but I was
Um,
like, never focused on it.
Yeah, it's
Now I feel like I'm in the club now.
there's a lot more to
The
say, but I
knowledge.
actually had in mind to do some more research just on this particular line of the Gemara, and I had something printed out, but I did not get a chance to spend more time on it. Maybe that'll be next year's year on this one line. But I was thinking about it because it really is troubling, you know,
Yes,
to
yeah.
think that he, just focusing on Eov for a second, the fact that Chazal are so harsh on Eov,
Right.
and whether or not it works out historically, chronologically, geographically, that Eov was there, the fact that Chazal can even say it means that they really took that attitude to task. So much so that such great sermon comes out. I was trying to figure what the Musar Haskell of it is, and I have the following, but again, I don't know if it's correct. So what I think is that, if running away is a possibility, and avoiding confrontation is the only way, meaning you're not always going to outwit your opponent, you're not always going to be able to defend yourself or your people. Sometimes you really,
Retreat.
retreat is the best option, meaning confrontation isn't always the best way to go. Then that could be the best option. But if that option is not available, meaning if retreat is not an option, if you're Eov, for example, and you're stuck in the king's chamber, and he says, "So Eov, what do you think?" And you've no longer have the ability to leave, so remaining quiet is not an option. I think perhaps that's what we're talking about. Meaning you have to be mishtadil, you have to deal. You have to try whatever it is, as we're going to see in a moment when we talk about Shifra and Puah, Yocheved and Miriam, that they were also came face to face with Paro. And he very well could have killed them also. What did they say? They said, no, the Jewish women are different, and the pasuk even goes out of its way to tell us they were Yirei Shemayim. And perhaps that's what it's saying. It's saying that Chazal are telling us is that retreat like Yisro is not a bad thing. But if you're not given that option, then remaining silent and do nothing is not an option either. I thought that's an important idea. And then, if you want to talk about Midah Keneged Midah, again, because everything in this Gemara we can bring back to Midah Keneged Midah, so what are Yisurin? What are tests from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? That's Eov's opportunity to, right? It's his opportunity to show strength in the face of adversity. Again, I don't know. These are all hard things to say because...
Would you say halacha? I know we're not supposed to be discussing halacha anymore, but the halacha of pikuach nefesh, when would you say that is a comment? The Gemara is commenting on that. If he was in that room, that was the wrong thing to do, to kind of just stay quiet so that he wouldn't be killed. Or
right.
That you're supposed to,
I don't know. Right. If Yisro had spoken up, according to Chazal, against Paro, then you would see that clearly there was a way that he could have done something to stand Jewish people. The fact that the one who's praised didn't even stand up means that that wasn't an option. So it's hard to say that in that case. Because then you could say, oh, he had an opportunity to save the Jewish people, and he didn't take advantage of it. I don't know. That's a good question. But that's what I thought. And I thought that's why Midah Keneged Midah, he's put into that situation where he's forced, right, to utter the words Imo Anochi B'tzara. The Kadosh Baruch Hu remains with us in our tragedy, meaning to stand up for what you know is right, even though it's difficult. I don't know. But it's a difficult chazal, and it's difficult. Maybe we'll have to do some more research into that. Then the Gemara continues. This is now 7. Right, it's numeral 7 on the sheets, right? It says, "Vayavidu Mitzrayim es bnei Yisrael b'farach." They worked there b'farach with harsh labor. So this word farach is a difficult language. What exactly it means? So excuse me. So what is farach? So the Gemara says, "Rabbi Lezer Amar b'farach." Excuse me, with a soft mouth, meaning that they started, do us a favor, right? I'll point out that Paro himself started working. He said, hey, Jews, come help me build my city. Right, we're going to do this together. We're going to make Egypt the most oppressive civilization ever. And then slowly but surely, right, you volunteer for something, and then before you know it, you're not volunteering anymore. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani Amar befricha, literally with backbreaking labor. Vayamaru es chayehem bavoda kasha uvechomer v'levenim, and they embittered their lives with hard work. Bechomer levenim, they made them make bricks. So Amar Rava, B'tchila, originally it was all chomer v'levenim. It was, just help us build Pithom and Ramses, right? Help us build the capital of Mitzrayim. Uvelasof uvechol avoda basadeh. But before you know it, the Jewish people were enslaved not just by building these Pithom and Ramses, but they were doing all manners of labor. As the pasuk says in Shemos Parakala pasuk Yedalid, Vayamaru es chayehem b'avoda kasheh, b'chomer v'levenim, uvechol avoda basadeh. It's called avoda sama she'avdu b'hem b'farach. It started with a simple favor, and then it became indentured slavery, and then it became not just slavery to build the cities, but they were doing everything. They became out and out slaves. It's called avoda sama she'avdu b'hem b'farach. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rabbi Yonasan, she'machlifim malachas hanashim. What does it mean? It's called avoda sama she'avdu b'farach, that all the work they made them do b'farach. Why say the word farach twice? It's called malacha asher asu avdu b'farach. Why is it repeated? So very interesting opinion here. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rabbi Yonatan. Shehayu machlifim malachas anashim lanashim. They gave the men the work of the women. Umalachas nashim la'anashim. They gave the work of the woman to the men. Ulaman da'amar nami hasan b'farach. And even according to Rabbi Elazar, who said that they started, the first time the word b'farach is mentioned, because it's mentioned twice. It's mentioned first in Pasuk Yud Gimel, Vayavdu Mitzrayim es bnei Yisrael b'farach. And then it's again mentioned at the end of Pasuk Yedalid, Avdu behem b'farach. Even according to him, who says they began, the first time the word parach means they began by cajoling them with nice words. Hachavade pricha. Even he agrees that at the end it became backbreaking labor. So, just to focus on that idea that they gave men the work of women and women the work of men, because right, Gemara is commenting on the end of Pasuk Yedalid. It says, "Es kol avodah sam asher avdu." All the work which they did b'farach, was hard. What does it mean? It's kol avodah. Sure. So they already said they did work. They're saying, in the work in which they gave them the work of others, that was befarach as well. They found new ways to make them suffer. So Rashi points out on this idea. What does it mean to give the men's work to women and women's work to men? So, so he points out very interesting. And one could ask the following question, right? I can imagine for some people that would be easier, right? Depending on what your natiya was. Right? For a man to be given work that was made for a woman, he might find easier. And for a woman to be given work that she found, right, that a man was supposed to do, but it wasn't part of a woman's responsibility, she might find that easier. What intrinsically made that more difficult? I mean, depending on your physical capabilities, that could be easier depending on who you are. If you're a very strong person, and the work for the person who you're taking over was given a menial task, right, like mixing the mortar as opposed to lifting the bricks, so I could find that to be the opposite of ferach. So I'll tell you what Rashi says, and then I'll tell you what the Bali Musar say, which I think is a very fascinating comment. So they say as following. So Rashi says, why is it so hard to take the work of the opposite gender? Because they weren't accustomed to it. Which means that to do anything which you're not accustomed to or equipped for, it can be difficult, right? Meaning that something that that all things are laborious unless you become good at them, says Rashi. And therefore, for a man to do the work of a woman, like some say, some opinions are that the men were made to knead the dough or do the other things that the women were doing before that. Why is it hard? Because if you're not good at it, right? All of our tasks, right? Someone could say, well, that job is so easy, yeah, because, all right, or I have it so hard, and I say, yeah, it's hard for you, but for that person, it's very easy, right? Or you don't, etc., etc. But I thought the Bali Musar have a very nice idea, and they say the following: they say that when a person does the work of someone else, it's not the work that's cut out for them. It becomes torturous. Meaning, for a person to take on a job that's meant for someone else is the most difficult thing in the world. Meaning, for someone who's physically strong to do the work of someone who's not as physically capable as them can be humiliating and can be cumbersome, because when you do something which you don't feel you're fulfilling your tafkid, you don't feel you're filling your purpose because you're doing the work of others and not the work which you can be successful at. That can be almost as painful and as cumbersome as being forced to do the hardest work in the world. And the Bali Musar say, and they talk about that, and that's the idea that perhaps one suggestion of this Gemara is that people should be in terms of, we shouldn't look to take on tafkidim of others if we're not meant for them. We all have to envision, like the Gemara says, that the Shekhinah cries for those who teach Torah and shouldn't be teaching Torah, as well as it does for those who should be teaching Torah and aren't teaching Torah. I mean, there's no such thing as this is the most honorable profession, whatever the profession might be, whether it be a Torah scholar or a teacher of Torah or a physician or a lawyer. Is that where your strengths lie? Your strengths may lie in something which is less noble. And perhaps that's what Chazal are telling us here, is that if that's not where your strengths lie, you're not going to be satisfied. For you, it'll be impossible. So it's an important idea. Any comments on that?
Maybe also just a way to kind of destroy the social order. Like sometimes, even if you're a slave, you might have certain, like a certain social order, and like women, and that just by switching it can kind of just destroys that as well.
Right.
So it's another way of just kind of.
I'm assuming you're right.
Culture.
I'm assuming then it seeped into other aspects of their fulfillment and their, we'll see in a minute. The women really were aware of this, and they were responsible for despite this fact rebuilding the morale of their husbands and the men. Which brings us to the merit of the righteous woman. So Darash Rav Avira. Because of the merits of the righteous woman, we were redeemed from Mitzrayim. Right, and that's the reason why. Women drink Dalit Kosos on Pesach. Right, the Gemara says, "Afhein hayu ba'oso anes." Right, just like Hanukkah and Purim, because in the merit of the woman we were redeemed from Mitzrayim. The Gemara says it black and white. Uvishah sheholachos l'shov mayim, and therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu performed a miracle through the woman. At the time when the woman went to go draw the water, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mezamin lehem dagim ketanim b'kadehem. V'shovos mechza mayim mechza dagim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made there appear little fish in their water jugs, and when they drew their water from the river, there was half water, half fish. Ubaos v'shoftos shtei kadera achas al chamin v'achas shel dagim. And they went and they cooked 2 pots on the oven, 1 pot of hot water, and they were able to cook fish as well. Umolichos eitzel baalei and lasada, they brought the fish and the water to their husbands in the field. Umarchitzos asan, and they washed them. V'sachos asan, and they anointed them. Umachilos asan, and they fed them. Umashakos asan, uniskakos lehen bein savatayim. and they took care of them, and they also took care of their physical needs, bein time on the boundary, right? The men were spent, and the women encouraged them to keep on propagating the Jewish people, and they were fruitful and multiplied as a result. That's the Gemara there. And then the Gemara says, Im tishkavun bein tzvatam. The pasuk in Tehillim says that if you will lie down between the borders, implying the act that they were Musar Nefesh to keep the Jewish people going, despite the fact that this was not the time. Bischar tishkavun bein shvatayim, as a result of the fact that they encouraged their husbands to keep on going. Zachu Yisrael lebizas Mitzrayim. The Jewish people were zocha to the spoils of Mitzrayim, because that same pasuk in Tehillim continues, Kanfe Yona Nachba Bekesef, that the wings of the dove are encased in silver. Vaveroseha B'Yarkukos Charutz. B'Yir Karak Charutz, and the limbs of the dove are encased in gold. So the gold and silver. Not only did the Jewish people get redeemed physically from Mitzrayim, which was perhaps which is all from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but even the physical rewards we got, the gold and silver, was all as a result of the Mesiras Nefesh of the woman. V'kevan shemitavros ba'os l'betei, when the woman was time to give birth, they came home. V'kevan shemagia zman moladeihen, and it was time to give birth. Holchos v'yoldos basada, they went out into the fields and gave birth in the fields. Tachas hatapuach, underneath. It's really not an apple tree. Rosh Hashanah says tapuach is a citrus tree. There was no apples in those days. Shneimar tachas hatapuach arosecha. I awakened from underneath the apple tree in Shir Hashirim. That's what the idea. One of the ideas of where we get for the charoses, the tapuach, which I guess is either apple or citrus, depending on how you read the pasuk. It's from the woman who went out and gave birth under the apple trees. Which again, I guess one could ask what's it doing here, but that was really the sign, as we're going to see in a minute, that was the sign of hope for the Jewish people. Right? Rebirth.
You don't think of charoset as, you think of it as like the, not
break
like the negative part of Mitzrayim, not like the...
Right, but it's brought down that one should put, it's brought down the halachas from, that you should dafka put tapuach in for this reason, based on this pasuk.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but again, Rosh Hashanah says it's citrus fruit, it's not apples. So it's got to be apples. But anyhow, so that's just...
Wait, which word is the apples or citrus?
Tapuach.
Tapuach, he says
In biblical
citrus?
Hebrew. In modern Hebrew, it's apples, but biblically, there's no such thing as an apple. Apples didn't exist. So whenever Chazal referred, or the Pesukim referred
We
to
know
tapuach,
that it didn't exist?
that's what Rosh Hashanah says. I don't know exactly what his proof of
Johnny
that is.
Appleseed.
Some scientific, probably.
I guess there were no apple trees in ancient Israel, or ancient Egypt.
Mhm.
It's not their climate, it's not their region. I don't know, they might grow now, but I don't think they were...
Well, Sparta used dates, so I don't know if that's
Dates,
citrus,
and they
but
did
it's closer.
Yeah, so they did put dates, they did put tavlin in, like the straw to put in ground up cinnamon to represent the straw. There's a lot of minhagim. It's actually brought down the halachas. The Marul brings down, there's an actual ingredients, it's an actual recipe. So I think that Gemara speaks for itself. I don't know a lot more to say anything in that Gemara. Not a lot to say in that Gemara. Just a nice Gemara. Okay, Shifra Apua, the famous Shifra Apua. The famous Shifra Apua. So Vayomer, now this is source. This is number 9 in the Gemara. Vayomer Melech Mitzrayim L'Mialdos V'Avrios. The king said to the Jewish, what do you call them? Mialdos, the midwives. That's a good word. Rabu Shmuel, another machlokas Rabu Shmuel. Chad Amar Isha Bita. One says that they were a mother and daughter. V'chad Amar Kal V'chamosa. One says that it was a mother and daughter-in-law. Manda Amar Isha Bita Chaved and Miriam. According to those who say that it was a mother and daughter, it must have been Yocheved and Miriam. Well, it was very young at this point. Miriam was only a few years old because Moshe wasn't born yet. But she was very young. Manda Amar Kal V'chamosa, and according to one who says that it's a mother and daughter-in-law, so we assume it's Elisheva, Aaron's wife, who either was very young or was much older than Aaron, because Aaron was younger than Miriam. Yocheved ve'Elisheva. Tanya Kamandam Isha Obita. We have a brisa that supports those who say that it was a mother and daughter. Tanya, as it says in the brisa, Shifra zu Yocheved. The Shifra is a reference to Yocheved. V'lama nikra Shema Shifra. Why was she called Shifra? Shema Farefras es Havlad, because she used to anoint and the limbs of the baby. Davar acher Shifra sheparu v'rabu yishal b'yameha. That because of her great acts, the Jewish people were able to be fruitful and multiply. Pua zu Miriam. Pua was a reference to Miriam. V'lama nikra al Shema Pua. Why is she called Pua? Shahaisa Pua motzias Havlad. Because she used to poo-poo. Like Rashi points out, she used to raise her voice and coo with the babies when they came out. Davar acher Pua shaisa Pua Baruch HaKodesh, because she spoke Baruch HaKodesh, V'omeres, and she said, Tidim imi shetele ben shemoshiach Yisrael. She gave her mother hope and said, one day, Ima, you're going to give birth to the Savior of the Jewish people. Not only did they help the woman give birth, but the Gemara continues, says, "V'techayena sayaladim." What does it mean that they gave them life? Lo dayin shelo himtin shahamito etan. It wasn't just enough that they didn't kill them, but they actually gave them life. How did they give the babies life? Ela shahayu masikos lehen mayim umazon. They took care of their physical needs. They gave them water and food as well. So it's interesting. A nice idea that Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky in the Emes Liyaakov points out is that in the Torah praises them, and it says, what does it say here? It says, "Batirena hamiyolados pasuk zayin, batirena hamiyolados es Elokim." The miyolados were midwives were feared HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Below asu kasher diber alei melech Mitzrayim v'chenas yeladim. They did not do what the Parah said. They gave them life. So Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky points out a very nice idea. He says they saved lives, and they literally did b'kuach nefesh. Not only did they help bring babies into this world and not kill them, but they performed b'kuach nefesh. They made sure that they gave them enfamil, they gave them formula to make sure that the babies would live. Yet the Torah only praises the Yirah Shemayim. Right? The Torah goes out of its way to praise them that they feared HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why is it that the Torah emphasizes that? It doesn't emphasize the b'kuach nefesh that they did for them. So he points out a very nice idea, which I think rings very true. He says, we're not for their Yirah Shemayim, we're not for their fear of heaven, that all that matters is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is our king. They would not have been able to rise to the occasion, to actually be Moser Nefesh, risk their own lives, and stand up to Paro. So he points out this idea that in reality, people who do great things, although the great things that they accomplish have to be pointed out, we also have to point out what gives them the strength to do that. It's the Mesiras Nefesh, comes from the Yirah Shemayim. Meaning,
It's not just a humanist act.
it's not just a humanistic act, right? Meaning that they could have easily, they had a million excuses not to do this. But they understood that
And
HaKadosh
certainly
Baruch
in
Hu...
this case, because they were risking their lives every time they did anything.
Correct.
to help these kids.
And if it were not for the fact that they knew that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had their backs looking out for them, they would not have had the ability to have Mesiras Nefesh. So this idea that Bikuach Nefesh, oftentimes Yirah Shemayim sometimes even trumped that. And it reminded me of a tshuva of Moshe Feinstein. It might be well known that someone once asked Moshe Feinstein, he said, can I use Meiser money? You might have heard this before. Can I use a tenth of my income to pay for my daughter's yeshiva education? Have you heard this before? What's it doing? Right? So we know that you can't use Meiser money to pay for mitzvahs. The man said, well, my sons have a mitzvah, right? Shantam levanecha. So with my daughter, it's chesed. It's not a mitzvah. Whatever his cheshbon was. He said it's not a pure mitzvah. So Moshe said it might not be a pure mitzvah for Talmud Torah, but it's a mitzvah of bikuach nefesh. That bikuach nefesh isn't just physically saving somebody; it's also taking care of their spiritual needs. He said sending your daughter to yeshiva is preparing for her for spiritual
I've
needs.
never heard
What
that.
a huge
And he thought that Maser wasn't spending for yeshiva tuition, that wasn't okay?
Well, he was just again. We're not,
It's just.
he's saying if you can tell me it's not a mitzvah.
Okay.
In general, it's a separate mitzvah. How you calculate mitzvah is something separate.
Okay.
And then we're going to finish up here. We're short on time. But then Yaakov Kamenetsky posted another beautiful idea also, which was that what's the Gadol Hador, as we'll see in a minute, what's the Gadol Hador's wife doing being a Mialedes? Why was, of all people, we know, the Gemara tells us that Amram was literally the Gadol Hador. So why was his wife the Mialedes? So he points out also just a very beautiful idea, a very point, was that he understood the Jewish people at this point were not going to sit and learn Torah. They were not going to sit and listen to Musar. They had many other things occupying their mind. He wasn't going to reach them through the intellect. So his wife understood that the only way for us, for the great people, to reach the Jewish people in their moment, was to go to where they are, to meet their needs as they were presently. And just because you're the Gadol Hador doesn't mean the people want to hear what you have to say. But if you can take care of that which does speak to them, you can reach them at their level and what their needs are at that moment, then you have a chance of giving them hope. And they don't need Musar now.
Something else entirely different. I think that because in the story how Miriam got her parents back together, so it's very nice that they got back together, but now if you want to be a role model for the Jewish people, you actually have to be there, as you said.
Right.
So
In the trenches.
exactly, so she's going to be there when the women are giving birth and making sure those babies are okay. It's not enough
because
just to
they
be the
decided,
role
right.
model. You have to be there for the follow-through.
It must have been terrifying to give birth
Yeah.
that time, knowing that you were
You
not
were
supposed
bringing-
to have a baby. They were supposed to kill them. So, they probably need a lot, like not just physical support, but moral support.
Right, so she has to be there. She
Shit.
can't just.
Right. That's another idea.
And
They're all
it's,
correct. And I guess we're basically out of time. Do you want to do the last one? V'yikach ish beis Levi, or should we stop
No,
here?
that's fine.
Okay, whatever you can leave. So we'll just
Carpool, but I'm good.
what time do you do carpool?
No, it's TABC carpool at 1:30, so I'm good.
Oh, okay. So yeah, this idea is, this is all great leaders recognize that, throughout history. That's how the right. That's how the Baal Shem Tov was able to get Hasidism to become the dominant force in Judaism today, was because he realized that there's different ways to reach different people, and that's what Amram and Yocheved understood, and Miriam understood, was that you don't reach everybody through the mind. That some people just need right. Sometimes you just need a piece of chicken to bring Jews back. That's a very nice idea. So then the Gemara continues and it says, "Vayiki Yeru Hamiyolada says Elokim," that it was because they feared Hakadosh Baruch Hu v'yaslam batim and he made for them houses. Again, Rabbi Shmuel Chad Amar Bate Kahuna V'Levia. One says he made them houses of Kahuna V'Levia. The Chad Amar Bate Machos. One said he made for them, right. The houses were not physical houses; they were the household of Kahuna would come from them. The household of Levia would come from them, and the kingdom would come from them. Ma'ad Amar Bate Kahuna V'Levia, Aaron and Moshe. According to the one who says that it was the Bate Kahuna V'Levia, it's a reference to Aaron and Moshe. Umad Amar Bate Malchus, it's a reference to David himself. Right, and there's this idea that we have, and we understand this, that Bais has always been a house, right? That we see by Achashverosh, it says, V'tikach Esther lo labas, he took her to be a daughter. So the Gemara says, I'll take her bas el Bais, don't read her as daughter, read her as house. House doesn't mean a physical house, it means a household. And we talk about Yerushalayim, right? We talk about Kohanim, where we say, Beis Aaron Baruch es Hashem, that the house of Aaron will bless HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a reference to all Kohanim in future generations. That who are the ones? So this is perhaps Rav Yisrael Belsky points out this is not necessarily a drush reading of the pasuk; it's a pshat reading of the pasuk. That bias doesn't mean house. Al pi pshat, bias means those who follow in the footsteps. Right? You'll have those who symbolize Yerushalayim. Who are the ones who are supposed to instill fear in the Jewish people? The Kohanim, the spiritual leaders of the Jewish people, and the Melech, the one who takes care of the Jewish people. They're the ones who are going to instill Yerushalayim in the Jewish people, because it's through and where do they get the fortitude for this? Where do the Jewish leaders get the fortitude to be spiritual inspiration to the Jewish people? From the very first ones who risked their life because of Yerushalayim, Yocheved and Miriam. There's this idea that it's in their bloodstream, right? Of course, every person has a responsibility themselves to rise to that occasion, but this Yerushalayim was the prime hallmark of the leaders of the Jewish people. And then just to finish, there's more to say about that, we'll hold off for now. And then just to finish this last idea, the well-known Devar Chazal, also points out in Rashi, the Parak Beis begins. It says, Vayelech ish mi Beis Levi v'yikach es Bas Levi. So it says, Vayelech v'yikach, he went and he took. So the question is, where was he? Where, he was already married, right? What is Vayelech and v'yikach? They're obviously referring to something. He's an anonymous man taking an anonymous woman. So Chazal say, Lahechan halach, where did he go? Amar Rav Yehuda bar Zvina, Shahalach b'eitzas bito. He went because of the advice given to him by his daughter. Tana Amram gadol hador haya. We're taught that Amram was the leader of the generation. The kevan shegazar paro harasha al haben hayolad yoror tashachiu. When Paro said that all boys will be thrown into the Yor, into the river, Amar l'shavanu milim. We're not going to bring children into this world. We're going to bring children just to be killed. It's an exercise in futility. Amad v'giresh es ishtu. He went and he divorced his wife. Amdu kulam v'girshu es b'nosheim. Everybody went and divorced their wives. Amar lo bas, his daughter said to him, Abba, kasha gezeroscha yoser shal Paro. Your decree is harsher than Paro's decree. Shaparo lo gazar el alazcharim. Paro only gozer on the males. Va'ata gezarta alazcharim al nekevos. But because of your actions, Jewish people aren't going to have boys or girls. Paro lo gazer ala bolamazeh. Paro is only gozer on what's going to happen in this world, meaning that children will die in this world. Va'ata bolamazeh olamaba. But your decree is going to have an impact both in this world and in the world to come. Again, Rashi only quotes the first of those three reasons, but she gives him three reasons. Paro harasha. We'll see the third reasons right now. Paro harasha safek miskayemes zeros so safek ene miskayemes. Paro harasha. People may listen to him, they may not listen to him. As we'll see, even his own people didn't listen to him. But you are a tzaddik. People are going to listen to you because they're going to fear Hashem also, and they're going to keep the Torah. Right? The people follow the words of the Chacham. Ahmad, what did he do? He got up. He took back his wife. He married his divorced wife. Amdu kulan. They all took back their wives. Vayikach. So then the Gemara says, why does it say Vayikach, that he took his wife? You should say Vayachzor. He returned to his wife Mibayale. That's what the Gemara pasuk should have said. Some Rav Yehuda Bar Zvina she'asalo ma'aseli kuchim hoshiva be'iparion, that he went and he took her back as if it was his first marriage to her. He shaviu be'iparion, he took her back with joy and gladness. Aaron and Miriam araktin lefneihem, and Aaron and Miriam danced before them. Malachi hasharis amru zo eim habanim smecha. And the Malachi hasharis, the angels themselves, called out and said eim habanim smecha. Right, the mother of children rejoices. So his second marriage is more joyful, or as joyful as his first marriage. A lot to say here, but
It's okay, don't wait.
just a minute. I was thinking about this Gemara Vayilach Ishi Beis Levi Vikachim Bas Levi, and instinctively most of us would think that that Miriam was probably right. In telling her father, you have to have hope, but Avram's logic also seems to make sense. Like who was thinking, like Lo Aleinu, and during the date, like the Holocaust, was that one couldn't fault someone for making a decision like that. That's as far as they knew, right? There's to bring a child in this world just to be killed instantaneously seemed like the wrong decision to make. It seemed like almost a callous decision to make. So her argument might have seemed right, but he really seemed to be more responsible. His decision seemed to be the one that a leader has to take. You're right, my daughter, but sometimes adults have to make the hard decisions, child. That's why we're adults and you're children. But and there's another questions you could ask, and this is also what is it that Miriam was able to say to convince her father? He was the Gadol Hador, the Gemara tells us. So clearly he had thought of all these things, or maybe he didn't think of these things. And if he didn't think of them, why was she able to think of this and not him?
Is it possible she had Ruach HaKodesh? We say she's in the Biyah.
It's possible, but I think we'd assume he did too. Yeah, she was clearly on a very high level.
Was he known to be a Navi?
I believe so.
I think it was a comparison to Paro.
Yeah.
That,
She got him with she was
yeah,
able to his
that
weakness.
that was
You're worse than Hitler.
clincher. That was a clincher. Once you compare him to Paro, like yes, they're both leaders.
Right.
So I think that.
Interesting. That's a very nice idea. That's very nice. That's probably all probably true as well. But I just thought of something in addition to that. That's probably very true also. Is that what's the necessity of all three arguments? So the first argument was boys. He goes around boys and girls. He just goes around the boys. Second argument she makes is that his decrees may happen, may not happen. And the third reason why you have to go back to our mother is because you're gonna forsake Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. So I thought each of the reasons perhaps build on each other. That one might argue first that the whole to do whatever it is I'm asked to do is just futile, right? Why even attempt to do whatever seems impossible, whatever seems to be illogical, whatever seems to not make sense. And her first argument to him is, it might not make sense to you logically, but there's a reason to do it, right? You have to do it because your decision is just flawed. It's a flawed decision, right? Your decision is gonna have an impact not only on the boys but on the girls as well. And then the next argument is, okay, but I've tried it, but now I'm reaching obstacles. Right? I've taken your advice. I tried to do what you said. I understand that you're right. I have to do something differently. But guess what? I tried, and I'm just not finding success in this decision. Things aren't going as planned. So she says to him, "Safek meskiyames, safek ini meskiyames." You know what? Things might turn around in a way that you don't anticipate. Right? His decree might not happen. Right? Safek ini meskiyames. Right? You're right. You tried it. You did the right thing, and you're right. You reached an obstacle, and now you're ready to give up. But you know what? HaKadosh Baruch Hu really is the one in charge. In safek meskiyames, safek ini meskiyames, who ultimately really knows whether or not what you're trying to attempt to do, what this decision you've made, really will be as bad as you think. Maybe things will turn around in unexpected ways. And then I thought perhaps the last step, and perhaps the hardest step, is he says, okay, I've tried it. I didn't want to, but I did it anyhow. I took your advice and I said things they didn't turn around. And worst case scenario happened. And her last piece of advice to him is, okay, but ultimately we don't live for Olam Hazeh. We live for Olam Haba. And her words to him are, you did all the right things. Now it's out of your hands and HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hands, because we believe that there is an Olam Emes. There is a world to come, and that perhaps is why she has three different arguments to him. Right? But each argument he makes, she retorts him with a different argument. And then I thought perhaps, why Miriam? And I thought perhaps because she's a child. I thought maybe that was why. She's Moshe's older sister, so she was very young at this age.
Optimistic.
optimistic, right? And she was able to see what Amnon couldn't because she wasn't callous. She was innocent. She was she didn't have cynicism. And she believed in Hashem. I'm not saying he didn't believe in Hashem, but that's that's the whole
In that
In a
pure,
simpler way.
absolute way.
pure emunah pshuta.
Right.
And that's the whole essence of Pesach, which is why the whole mitzvah is through the children, right? You got to levincha. You have to tell your children the story. The mitzvah Sipur Yisrael is on children because they, as Rabbi Besser, one of my colleagues, always likes to point out. Every holiday has its mitzvah. Sukkot has its lulav, right? And Esrog, Pesach has its children. They are a chefetz shel mitzvah. They are the vehicle for our mitzvah performance. If it wasn't for their imagination and their innocence, we would not be able to fulfill the mitzvah. I can't envision myself in Mitzrayim. I can't believe in Hashem in a world such as this. Yeah, but the 9-year-old at your table can. So ask him to help you. Okay.
It also makes
Yeah.
sense why Miriam watched, because she's kind of responsible for his birth. So that's why I think she's also has such a hand in this whole scheme of putting him in the water with the basket, and she's got to see this through because it's like this was her
Right.
brother.
It's her child, right.
And
Yeah.
if not for
Invested.
her grabbing her mother in to be the nurse, to nurse him. I mean, she really did see her plan through.
Yeah.
It's a nice
Yeah.
model also maybe just for general advice in life, in Judaism, you start with the logical and, if you can't get past it, then just
Right.
do it because we just don't know what it's gonna be, You know, it's
Exactly.
like a very kind of more spiritual, if you can't use the actual solid logic, then there's always,
Right.
that's the final one.
Shop is rubbish.
Exactly. All right, more
Thank
to
you so
say, but
much.
not for now.
Thank you.
Yes,
Really
yeah.
interesting.
Shana Haba, theme of Pesach.
Now I have more cocktail table Gemaras to know.
Right, exactly.